Hello, everyone. We are back, and we have Andrew Ford from DOE Idaho here with us to present the Consolidated Innovative Nuclear Research FOA Overview. Go ahead, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon if you're over on the East Coast. We appreciate everybody joining us today. I'm going to begin the section, as Julie discussed, about talking about the CINR FOA Overview. And this year, the FY 2023 FOA number is DE-FOA 0002732, and we anticipate this being posted sometime this month in August. As Julie has already discussed previously, you can submit questions in the little question box on the GoToWebinar screen, or down at the bottom right, I believe. And if we should have some time at the end to address the questions, but if we do run out of time, those question and answers will be posted at the NEUP.gov website. So, and if you have specific questions on individual eligibility or work scope detail, those should be addressed offline and not in this platform. So a quick outline of this presentation for this hour, for this slideshow. First, we're going to discuss some of the FY 2022 outcomes. Next, we'll go over the RFI overview. Next will be the FOA overview, followed by the policy updates and reminders, and then we'll discuss review process, tools, and submissions. So as many of you are already aware, in June we announced the FY 22 selection, and from that we awarded $61 million for 74 nuclear energy projects across the country. The projects will support nuclear technology development, infrastructure improvements, and career opportunities at more than 40 US universities. With these awards, DOE's Office of Nuclear Energy has awarded more than $931 million to advance nuclear energy research and train the next generation of nuclear engineers and scientists since 2009. This chart kind of gives you an illustration of how many pre-applications were received under each area. You can see here across the bottom, we have cross-cutting technologies, fuel cycle technologies, mission supporting NE, NEAMS, nuclear reactor technologies, with laid out the number of pre-apps submitted, pre-apps invited, full apps submitted, or the full apps selected is the final number there. So in summary, we had 459 pre-applications received, 167 pre-applications invited, and 207 full applications received. And as from the public announcement, as you're aware, 38 applications were selected. And then a summary of the IRP applications, we did have 24 applications received with 7 IRP applications selected. Now on to the NSUF programs. Under NSUF 1, NSUF 2.1, and NSUF 2.2, you can see the appropriate numbers there, with a total of 38 received pre-applications, 12 invited applications, 11 full applications received, with 4 applications selected. For FY 2023, the CINR FOA objectives and priorities are: any mission is to advance US nuclear power in order to meet US energy, environmental, and economic needs. Toward this mission, NE has identified goals to address challenges in the nuclear energy sector, to help realize the potential of advanced technology, and to leverage the unique role of the government in spurring innovation. Enable continued operation of existing US nuclear reactors, enable deployment of advanced nuclear reactors, and develop advanced nuclear fuel cycles and spent nuclear fuel management options. All applications submitted under this FOA will need to demonstrate a strong tie to the NE mission. NE conducts cross-cutting nuclear energy research and development and associated infrastructure support activities to develop innovative technologies that offer the promise of dramatically improved performance for its mission needs as stated above, while maximizing the impact of DOE resources. So this slide just kind of goes over some of our anticipated fiscal year 2023 due dates. And just please remember, this is subject to change, but will be illustrated in the official document, the funding opportunity announcement, when it's released later this month. So some things to be aware of. The office hours is anticipated to be the week of August 29th. NSUF LOIs due September 14th. R&D NSUF pre-application September 28th. NSUF preliminary statements of work November 30th. Full applications invitations will be, as normal, sent out December 2022. The final NSUF statements of work January 25th of 23. IRP applications are anticipated to be due February 8th of 23, and the full R&D or NSUF applications are anticipated to be due February 8th of 2023. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I'll take over and do the rest of this this overview presentation. For those who don't know me, my name is Drew Thomas. I manage the day-to-day activities at the NE integration office that runs the NUP integration office. So several items to talk about here. I'm going to be as quick as I can to make sure that we have time for questions. But there's a lot of changes, as Dr. Huff and as John Gilligan pointed out. So I want to spend some time going over the process and some of the changes that we anticipate happening. As Aaron mentioned, this is information that is being finalized through the finalization of our funding opportunity. So please be aware that everything we talk about today is potentially subject to change, and please pay special attention to the final funding opportunity announcement to capture any of those changes that may come about. I wanted to talk about the request for information that we had that Dr. Huff referenced in her presentation. We requested stakeholder feedback through this request for information in the early spring and finalized that in May. As Dr. Huff said, we had 40 individual responses for 20 different institutions. Those responses focused on both program improvements and potential high interest work scope areas. The NUP office evaluated each piece of feedback individually to understand how it could inform and improve the program. And I think you'll see that, that we've taken that input seriously and significantly altered our FY 2023 funding opportunity. And many of those details will be shared in this presentation. Many will be shared over the course of the next 3 days. There are some significant changes that came about because of that RFI and because of some considerations of content that we received there. That includes these significant changes. There is a significant change to the work scope structure. Those of you that have applied before will, I hope, will notice and see where those changes have been made. The categories have been reimagined, less in a program space and more in a technical space. And we've increased the flexibility in that work scope structure. So you'll notice that the structure and the words that are there in the work scopes are broader than they typically are. We're emphasizing NE nuclear energy mission ties instead of a heavier focus on program ties. So program tied and related work is still encouraged and of interest under this new structure, but that's not the only thing that's of interest in the structure. So the point is, we're hoping that spurs on some creative, innovative concepts that may not have been possible through the previous structure. There's some new blue sky opportunities, which will be talked about over the course of today and some into tomorrow. And there are continued significant changes that we plan to implement over several future fiscal years. This is an evaluation implementation type plan. Some of these are major changes and can be very complicated. So those include a competitively funded continuation project process for applications that have been awarded already and have gone through the first 3 years of their R&D project to have some type of continuation funding. We're also planning to reach for research experiences for undergraduate or RU program, modeled off NSF's RU program. And we're also looking to increase engagement. So you heard Andrew mention the concept of office hours. That's a new initiative that we'll have to try to help the community engage better with federal program managers and national technical directors to better understand the programs. And we are tentatively planning that for the week of August 29th. So we're looking to increase engagement with program managers with the community. We're also looking for increased engagement in work scope development and project outcomes reporting. And we are planning an engagement opportunity for the end of the 2022 Winter A&S meeting in Phoenix for that Thursday morning to have an engagement with the community there, where we can talk about high priority work scope areas and other things for our FY 2024 call. And finally, we're also exploring a reactor sharing program and how to better engage the those who don't have reactors on campus, along with K through 12 or other public initiatives to fully utilize those important national resources. So let's go to the nuts and bolts here, to the FOA overview. The FOA organization, the work scope organization has changed to 3 different sections. It'll have some familiarity and there'll be some differences, which I'll try to point out. Those have been separated into 3 appendices. The first is a university-led R&D, Appendix A. That has 2 areas: the university program R&D area, which is the largest grouping of research topics, and then what we call strategic needs blue sky R&D, which is what Dr. Huff referenced, that focuses on nuclear science and engineering topics that are of high need to continue. The second appendix is integrated research projects. There's 2 opportunities here: a blue sky grand challenge focused on accelerating reactor deployment, and a grand challenge research and development scope targeted toward minority serving institutions. And finally, we have Appendix C, which is our NSUF area, and that is NSUF access only. University program R&D is organized by topic area and subtopical area, covering many different areas that are important to the NE programs and the overall mission. The idea here is that we're interested in innovative ideas that cover technical challenges that can be covered in any of those scope areas. I'd like to point out, I hope that all of you have had a chance to read through the scope areas, but the other area, each topical area has an other area, meaning that if you feel like your research isn't really captured in any of the subtopical areas, there is an other area for each topic that really tries to capture anything mission related that's not highlighted in the subtopical descriptions. So we're hoping that creates a relatively open environment to propose in. The strategic needs blue sky R&D supports key topical areas that are critical to advancing both research and workforce pipelines. They're less defined topical areas that should allow for high risk, high reward pathways. And finally, the IRPs are significantly focused on addressing grand challenges, and they are intended to have a holistic approach to try to solve the defined problem in each of those areas. So from a topical area standpoint, there's 7 major topical areas with several subtopical areas underneath them and 3 strategic needs areas. And as I said, as a reminder, each topical area has an other category, which should be able to capture things that that we may not have outlined in each of these topical areas that you feel may be important or impactful to any mission. I do want to mention that there is an NEA NEST opportunity, which is an international organization in topic area 1 and IRP 1. This is something that is after a project is awarded, that PI can engage with NEA NEST for some participation in their program that ties university research projects across multiple countries. This is something that does not require any particular application here to DOE NE. but it is an option once those projects are awarded. It's also not part of the way that the applications are reviewed. But from that perspective, I just wanted to draw your attention to those two areas have that NEA nest opportunity in them. So let's go to Appendix A and talk about some specifics. We anticipate the award size for topic areas 1 through 7 to be up to $1 million. We anticipate that many projects will likely be requested or submitted under the $1 million mark, and we expect to have a mix of projects there. So the strategic needs blue sky is up to $500,000. Period of performance is up to 3 years. Universities are eligible to lead. Universities, national laboratories, and industry are eligible to collaborate. There are no NSUF tied R&D work scopes, meaning that NSUF this year is only access only requests. We estimate the funding level to be around $40 million, totaling approximately 43 awards, depending on what the overall budgets come in as. For Appendix B, we have 2 IRPs, as I mentioned. The IRP 1, the Grand Challenge for Accelerating Reactor Deployment, is duration is up to 3 years and up to $3 million. And for our research and development Grand Challenge at Minority Serving Institutions, that's 3 years at up to $1.5 million. Eligibility is universities are able to lead. Once again, university, national laboratories, and industry are eligible to collaborate. Teams should consist of a minimum of multiple universities. International collaborations are encouraged, and there are special requirements and criteria for IRP 2, which will be discussed later in the day. For Appendix C, the award size depends on what type of access you are looking for from the nuclear science user facilities. That could be up to $4 million for irradiation plus PIE, $1.5 million for irradiation, or $750,000 for beamline or PIE access requests. Period of performance is up to 3 years or up to 7 years if irradiation and PIE are proposed. And NSUF applications are open to universities, national laboratories, and industries to lead and collaborate. And like I said before, this is an NSUF access only call, so all projects proposed must have an established R&D budget from another source, like an NEUP project, direct funding, or otherwise. Estimated number of awards is approximately $5 million for NSUF access, totaling approximately 7 awards. So let's go to policy updates and reminders next. There are some major policy changes that are associated with the change in our work scope structure that I want to go over. The first is that the university program is shifting to a less prescriptive work scope area focus, which means it's much more any mission focused. And that means that our review criteria is going to reflect this shift, meaning a de-emphasis on the program priority of an application and the focus on whether it's relevant to any mission or not. So we can answer as many specific questions as we need to in that regard, but the idea here is that we'll be looking to make sure that all applications are relevant to any, and then moving them forward into the technical review space. Another major change is we are slightly altering our our eligibility restrictions to allow those who would like to apply for an IRP to also apply for one R&D application during the same fiscal year cycle. So these updates will be applied to the full application stage. The important distinction here is applicants cannot be awarded both an IRP and R&D award in the same year, which means that we would give priority to the larger IRP award if both applications were successful. As I mentioned before, the overall funding thresholds for projects have been increased in the draft work scopes. And there are some application submission changes, which we can talk about more in detail, but those include adopting the NSF current pending support template. There's some changes to the conflict of interest certification and some language in there about prohibitions related to foreign government sponsored talent recruitment programs. And finally, and I think I'd like to highlight this one, especially for those applying, is there is a new NE mission relevancy statement in the technical narrative, where, as John mentioned earlier, we encourage you to make sure that the applications that you submit are strongly tied to the NE mission in some type of a focus area. So there's an opportunity in the narrative to outline how you feel that the application you're submitting is mission relevant. So let's talk about some logistics here. There's some reminders on formatting and page limits. Font sizing is applied to all pages of a document, including references and tables. Graphic elements that have access labels or legends can be smaller but legible. This includes references, and that's one thing that we continue to have issues with applicants, is making sure that your references and your footnotes have that same font sizing applied. Applications that don't comply with the font sizing requirements will just have those non-compliant sections redacted from the application before being sent forward for review. The page limits are also strict, meaning that the same methodology would happen where we would redact pages to reduce it to the appropriate page limit size if it exceeds the page limit. This allows us to not dismiss applications, to still move them forward for review, even if they're in a little bit of a compromised state. Last but not least, please don't lock the budget cells in the budget spreadsheets. Keep them as they are as you fill those out. From a page limit standpoint, for R&D, it's a 5-page pre-application and a 10-page full application page limit for the narrative, 50 pages for IRPs, 2 pages for the LOI, 5 pages for the pre-app, and 15 for the full application for NSUF applications. For application submittals, when you submit an application, please visit neup.gov and click the sign in button at the top right-hand corner. You will need to create a new account if you don't have one. If you already have one, you can use your username and login. And then go to the applications tab and look for current open calls to create a new application. Some policy reminders about accounts and submissions. The lead applicant, the lead PI, must have an account in the system. So if a research administrator is creating and submitting your application, please make sure that you have the lead PI has an active account that's tied to the application as well. The application must be submitted by the same institution as the lead applicant. Co-PIs from other institutions or national laboratories are not allowed to submit an application on behalf of the lead PI. It must be submitted by an applicant at the lead institution. Applications are considered submitted by the lead institution at the pre-application phase, meaning the applications cannot be moved to another institution past that point. And materials must be submitted by the published deadlines. So if you have any issues with the system, please reach out on neup@inl.gov or call the numbers in the FOA immediately so that we can process any of those issues. Couple of extra accounts and policy submission reminders. You are required to have a unique entity identifier and register with the SAM website. This is at the institutional level, meaning that your institution should have those things, not necessarily you as an individual. All applications at the pre-application phase must include a list of publications resulting from past CINR projects if you have been awarded past CINR projects. Once again, PIs and collaborators are considered final during the pre-application phase. So you do need special permission and contracting officer approval if you do plan to make collaboration, co-PI, or other changes after the pre-application phase. And finally, use the PI are responsible for the appropriate topic area and subtopical area selection. Full applications compete in the same category as the pre-application. Each application can only be submitted once, so please don't submit your application to 3 or 4 topical areas that you feel like might fit. Find the best place for it and submit it there. And applications can be moved with PI approval and DOE recommendation if we feel like they really solidly fit in a different topical area than where it's submitted. Let's go to NSUF applications and some reminders there next. First, they can reminder that they can be led by universities, national laboratories, or industry. NSUF applicants are required to affirm their ability to accept a user agreement on submission of their LOI pre-application and full application. So please read through that draft user agreement in the FOA before you submit your application, so you understand the parameters that you're agreeing to. NSUF statements of work are uploaded to nup.gov on your pre-application submission as a post-submittal addendum. So if you don't understand how to do that, please do reach out to the NSUF office or to the NUP integration office early, before the deadline preferably, to understand how those submittals happen in a post-submittal addendum. And then, as I mentioned before, all scopes this year are NSUF access only in Appendix C. Let's move on to eligibility. Reminder, and this is something that is soon to finish out, but there's still a few projects that fall into this category, but due to extenuating circumstances due to the COVID-19 pandemic and related shutdowns, FY 2016 to 2009 active projects are not counted toward the eligibility restrictions that I'm going to speak to today. Applicants are responsible for making sure that they don't violate the submission limits. So please ask questions if you don't understand the submission limits after reading through them in the final funding opportunity. And a reminder on eligibility, investigators that have a university affiliation must be considered faculty, not on appointment from a national laboratory. So this is important. To qualify as a faculty member, more than 50% of an individual's salary and benefits must be paid by the university. The Institute of Higher Education should be considered the PI's primary employer. So adjunct appointments, joint appointments, or other similar arrangements typically do not meet that requirement. To continue eligibility, U.S. university PIs can submit up to 6 pre-applications with no more than 3 as the lead. You can submit no more than 1 IRP or 3 R&D projects, you can have no more than 1 funded IRP and 1 or 3 funded R&D projects at any time. And you can only submit as many full applications as you could be successful winning. So as you consider how you're going to apply for these applications, this happens at the full application level. But we do encourage you to be aware of what current funded projects you'll have ongoing and how that may affect your eligibility in future years. And then once again, PIs cannot submit the same application to multiple work scope areas, and NSUF access projects are not bound by these eligibility restrictions. So if you're submitting to Appendix C, don't pay attention to this specific stuff. Let's go to R&D specific eligibility requirements. Applicants are ineligible to submit R&D applications under these specific circumstances. If they have a currently funded IRP project that will still be active as of December 31st, 2023, they have 3 or more active R&D projects that will be active after December 31st, 2023, excluding NSUF projects, and the PI has a no-cost extension on any funded project, excluding infrastructure, that will still be active beyond December 31st, 2023. Going to IRPs. And these have slightly changed from years before, so I'll repeat where that changed. But if you have a currently funded IRP, you can apply for another IRP that will be active after December 31st. If you have 3 or more R&D projects, you also can't apply if they're still active after December 31st, 2023. You have a no-cost extension on any funded project with the exception of infrastructure beyond December 31st, 2023. If you're designated as the PI for more than 1 currently funded any project that will be active beyond December 31st, 2023, you also are not eligible to apply. Applicants that only have 1 currently funded R&D project are eligible to apply for IRPs. And new this year, if you have no active projects, any UP projects, you can apply to an IRP and to 1 CINR R&D project. So I know those are all convoluted in some ways. There's important reasons why all of these are written in such a detailed format. And if you have questions on these, please do reach out so we can outline them for you and talk about your specific situation with the active projects you have ongoing. Note on changing institutions. Procurement regulations require that applications submitted to this FOA be awarded to the applicant entity, meaning the Institute of Higher Education, and will not be transferred pre-award to another institution if the lead PI changes. So for example, if you were to take another appointment at another university, the application stays with the university that you submitted it under during the pre-application phase. There is a policy that's DOE-ID's Changing Principal Investigator and related changes/revisions policy that's on the NEUP.gov website that adhere to 2 CFR 200-308 that are options to be able to keep the project active but change the lead PI in those circumstances. Let's talk about collaborations next. For collaboration guidance, additional consideration is given for collaborations with minority serving institutions. The MSI list can be found in multiple locations. It's on the Department of Education website, and the FOA outlines the process for being considered an MSI if you are actively listed or inactively listed on a Department of Education MSI list. So the FOA will have instructions on how you engage the DOE in regard to providing information to confirm that you have MSI status. For all non-NSUF applications, non-university collaborators and composite can account for no more than 20% of the total funds provided by the government. So that's, if you have a national laboratory and industry partner in composite, they can have no more than 20% of the total funding request. International collaborators are encouraged, but those collaborations should be structured in a way that they don't, that they can stand on their own, so that they don't require collaboration for execution or success. That way, U.S. funding determinations aren't affected by potential international collaboration. And a reminder that funding is for U.S. institutions only, meaning international organizations are encouraged to participate, but cannot receive any U.S. funding as part of this funding opportunity. Let's go over the definition of collaborator quickly. For the CINR's purposes, we define anybody who is not the lead PI as a collaborator, meaning we don't make a distinction between a co-PI or a collaborator or a key personnel individual. They're all called collaborators as we talk about CINR. Those are individuals who are making a defined material contribution that's critical to the success of the project. That could include contributing to joint publications. Really it's individuals appearing in the project summary, technical narrative, benefit of collaboration, coordination and management plan, or budget documents. Those would all be people that would need to be directly listed on our application form. Individuals who do not meet that criteria should not be listed on the application form. And NSUF technical leads do qualify as a key personnel, so please add those if you are working through an access-only application. PIs must certify that all collaborators are listed on the application form and have agreed to participate in the project. So you must list all individuals that are involved in the project that qualify under that definition that I just gave you. And if you do not list all collaborations, your application may be dismissed. It's important for us to identify all individuals, both from a conflict of interest review perspective, and we have to verify that all individuals who are listed on an application have agreed to the obligations that that are outlined in the project proposal. So this is an important certification to qualify those two things. Going on to cost sharing is required, or is encouraged but not required. So I said that wrong. Cost sharing is encouraged but not required in any section of this FOA. And let's go to some project administration reminders. These are after a project is selected for award or awarded. This is an outline of our project or PI transfer policy that I mentioned earlier. Please do read through that if that situation is important to you, or if you're looking, if you're potentially moving from one institution to another. It should be clearly outlined, but once again, we can be a resource to walk you through that policy as well. Also a reminder on pre-award costs. If you are selected for an award and in the negotiation phase, there is a stipulation that pre-award costs can be applied 90 days immediately preceding the effective award date. This approval is required from the DOE contracting officer if it's more than 90 days. And disclaimer that recipients are responsible for pre-award costs. So if the negotiation was unsuccessful for any reason, the applicant would be responsible for pre-award costs. Finally, let's go to review process, tools, and submissions. Let's review the anticipated review criteria. As I mentioned earlier, this is shifting from a heavy program focus to more of a mission focus, which means our relevancy review is focused on confirming that the application addresses a relevant aspect of NE's mission. Pre-application technical reviews are high-level technical merit reviews focused on originality, creativity, and thoroughness of the concept being proposed. And our full application technical reviews have 3 criterion: advancing the state of knowledge and understanding of gaps, the technical quality of the proposed R&D project, and finally, team capabilities and experiences. Reminder that minority serving institution diverse partnership scoring is also a portion of the review criteria, and additional points are awarded to meaningful participation by minority serving institutions and applications. When I say meaningful, I mean, like an MSI-led application, significant R&D contribution by an MSI institution, or significant MSI student involvement as examples. Covering the NSUF specific review criteria, there's 2 pieces that are specific to NSUF. Those are the feasibility and readiness review. The feasibility review is understanding the feasibility of actually executing the project. So that's type of project, duration, the degree of complexity, types of samples, number of samples, size, shipping and containment, really, how the project would actually functionally happen. And so that feasibility review will take place at the NSUF office, and we encourage you to engage early and often with your technical lead to get guidance about the feasibility, about specific facilities and what kind of limitations they have. So please do that. That helps in that feasibility review process. From a readiness review standpoint, there's Part 1, Section B.2.1 of the CINR FOA that outlines what qualifies as a ready sample from an NSUF perspective. Those readiness reviews take place both at the pre-application and full application review, and your NSUF project must be ready to be able to be considered for selection for award. So please make sure to read that closely to clarify with the NSUF office if you don't understand the specific parameters of what is considered ready and not ready, so that you can be prepared for that readiness review as it comes. There is an uninvited pre-application policy in this funding opportunity. All uninvited pre-applications may be submitted as full applications per stipulations in the FOA, except for NSUF applications. NSUF applications cannot be submitted as uninvited full applications due to the expense associated with the feasibility assessments. Uninvited applications must pass a relevancy check to ensure that they are relevant to NE's mission before they're forwarded to full technical merit review. I'll provide some contact information here. For federal points of contact, they are listed in the work scopes. Please reach out to NEUP@inl.gov with your questions, and we can direct those at appropriate federal points of contact. For DOE Idaho procurement questions, you all met Andrew earlier. His email is listed here. And for general application submittal questions, please direct those to our office at NEUP@inl.gov or at the numbers listed here. Finally, as a reminder, these are our anticipated due dates pending the release of the funding opportunity. So as Andrew mentioned, they are subject to change based on final release of the FOA, which we will communicate at that time. And with that, I hope I left some time for questions. I know I went quickly through that, but I want to invite Andrew back up to the podium here to answer any questions Maybe he can even just turn on his mic if he doesn't want to be in front of the camera. But also like to invite John Gilligan and Aaron Gravel to participate in our question and answer here.
Thank you, Drew. It looks like we've got about 20 minutes for questions and answers. A couple of the questions were asked earlier before you started the presentation for the CINR FOA, but just so that those answers are clear and understood, I'm going to ask those questions. The first one is, will there be restrictions for non-US citizens?
No, the US Institutes of Higher Education, National Laboratories and Industry can apply to the funding opportunity. So there's no restriction on, for example, a lead PI, as long as they have, for example, faculty status at that US institution.
The other one that came in earlier was, did I hear correctly that there will be no relevancy review?
No, there will be a relevancy review. So to be clear, that relevancy review is intended to have less of a program specific or program priority focus and have more of an any mission focus. So there's a shift in what that relevancy review will be, but there's still, every application is still going to be evaluated for relevance to any mission before it's passed forward to full technical review.
Is it intentional that technical points of contact are not specified in the draft call?
It is intentional. So we'd like for applicants to engage with federal points of contact. As the mission areas have and the topical areas have expanded to be much more broad, we want to make sure that that there's an understanding and focus on the fact that any encourages applications that tie to the programs, but that's not a requirement to apply to the funding opportunity. And so the federal points of contact are the designated contacts to be able to answer any mission focused questions, which is why they are listed in the funding opportunity, or the draft work scopes, excuse me.
For the current and pending support document, will any UP still accept the NSF format or the Science CV template?
Yeah, so the current pending support template that we're moving to, I'm not like the most educated in this area, so I can use some correction here if somebody knows better. But my understanding is the current pending support format that we're moving to is the OMB approved NSF format. So so if there's a follow-up question there, I'm happy to take it, and I may not be able to answer directly here, but we'll get a direct answer to you later.
Applications can a single PI submit?
So single PI, it depends on what applications you're trying to submit, but in general, lead PI can submit 6 total applications, 3 in a lead role, and that would mean you could do 6 total, 3 in a lead role and up to 3 not in a lead role, for example. And so it's flexible, but if your name is on more than 6 applications, that's where you're going to hit a problem where you're going to exceed that limit. So whether that's in a collaborator role or a lead role, you can do 6 collaborations, for example, if you didn't want to be a lead PI.
Then a follow-on to that question, on your slide 36, the restriction is for 3 active NEUP R&D projects as a PI, right?
And I'm going to go back to 36 here. That is correct. So it does not include NSUF access only projects, for example, or infrastructure projects, or like distinguished early career projects, for example. It doesn't include any of those. We're talking about NEUP R&D projects.
Does the distinguished early career program, does that count towards the maximum number of awards?
No.
You. So another eligibility question regarding eligibility policy for PIs. Is a staff scientist at a university considered as faculty? There doesn't seem to have been an issue regarding this in previous CINR funding opportunities, but I'd like to make sure.
So the university, your specific university, is going to define who can act as a lead principal investigator. So from that perspective, the point that I was trying to make before is that if you're on a joint appointment or adjunct faculty position, actively working in industry or at a national laboratory, that we wouldn't consider that a faculty appointment, right? But your university is going to define like a staff scientist or postdoc or tenure track to be the lead PI. That'll be dependent on the specific university policy, which vary.
Yeah, let me just add that, yeah, you could be a research
Could you
scientist.
please
or
explain a
somebody-
little bit more about the office hours planned on the week of August 29th?
Yeah, so everyone heard the office overviews just now, right before this presentation. And the idea behind the office hours is to set up a set of Teams meetings with federal program managers and points of contact, including national technical directors from the programs and others, to be able to have a back and forth conversation about specific topical areas or specific programmatic work or programmatic topics that university professors are interested in. So this format tends to be relatively limited, right? With type-in questions and mostly output of information, and the office hours is intended to be an additional opportunity to help clarify, where the NE mission space is, what the programs are currently doing, those types of things, to try to provide more engagement with federal program managers and national technical directors in an appropriate space for a funding opportunity where we don't run the risk of violating the parameters of procurement, for example.
Drew?
Will the relevancy be reviewed for both pre-application and full application, and how much weight would it carry?
It will. It will be reviewed for both pre-application and full application. And we're finalizing the final set of review criteria that will be published in the FOA. So please understand that things can change here, but the intention is that what we're trying to do is confirm whether it's relevant to any mission or not. And we'll be placing more weight on the scientific and technical merit review rather than how relevant it is to any mission or to the programs, for example. So I don't know that I have exact details there as we're finalizing it, but that's the intention, is that we would be focused more on any relevancy and more of a, is it relevant, yes, or is it relevant, no, type of a category, not necessarily a weight.
Along those lines, who would be conducting the relevancy review? Would that be external reviewers or by DOE, NE?
So a relevancy review is going to be determined by DOE, right? So those who are looking through the applications are those that are going to have knowledge of the NE mission and the NE mission space. So it's going to be by DOE, the relevancy aspect.
The next question, how are proposers expected to address relevance of ideas without insider knowledge of the Office of Nuclear Energy?
So the intention is to provide those opportunities, right, with the office hours first and foremost, to have that engagement opportunity, to make sure that you can ask those important questions directly to program managers or others. And the point here is to try to fall within the NE mission space, but we're allowing flexibility in that mission space to propose what you as university professors feel might be creative solutions to those problems. So it's really a de-emphasis on the focus on program relevance or something like that, and more of a focus on scientific and technical merit. I hope that answers the question. If there's additional questions in that regard, please continue to ask them.
Drew, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, Aaron.
Just to follow up on that, you know, we have the work scopes that will be talked to in detail tomorrow and the following day, followed by a 45-minute Q&A, right? So, or something close to that. So there's going to be a block of time. So as office hours continue to be talked about and are arranged and developed, I think even tomorrow and day 3 will kind of be a great opportunity for that interaction and engagement with program managers, and we should take advantage of that for sure. Also back to just wanted to comment on eligibility. Again, just a reminder that, you know, there was quite a bit of information that was shared, and if you're familiar with CINR FOA in past years, there's a lot of information under the eligibility section. So just again, encourage you to take the time necessary to read through that once you see the FOA come out, once it's posted, and make sure that you understand and know what those guidelines are. And if you have questions at that point in time, you know, please reach out and ask us, and then we'll be happy to follow up with you and make sure that you understand those thoroughly. So that's all I had just to respond there. I also think John was trying to chime in there on a previous question. John, can you hear me, or can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Yeah, nothing in particular. I just said that for universities, a research scientist or anybody, you don't have to have faculty status per se. You just have to be approved by your university to submit a proposal to an outside agency and be the PI. So that's the criteria set by your own university. I also would encourage people to look at the nuclear energy DOE mission is rather general. I sent out a link. If you look up the link for the Office of Nuclear Energy at DOE and for its mission, it's pretty general. That's really the mission statement, and anything that fits under that mission statement is going to be, at least to first glance, going to be relevant because it meets the mission criteria. So take a look at the DOE NE mission on the website for the Department of Energy, and you'll get it's very general statements about enabling continued operation of the existing U.S. nuclear reactors, enable deployment of advanced reactors, advanced fuel cycles, maintain U.S. leadership in nuclear energy technology, and et cetera. So there's very general criteria regarding the nuclear energy mission.
And to build off that point that Aaron and John both made, our topical area presentations over the next 2 days will really try to pinpoint specific areas that fall into other offices' mission space, right? Whether that's NNSA or you know, some other area. So we'll try to pinpoint those, and please do use that question and answer opportunity to make clarifications on where those parameters are. So thanks, Aaron. Thanks, John.
Can a PI change his institution affiliation in the full application if he or she transferred after submitting the pre-application with another institution?
No, so the PI change policy would take effect after the pre-application is submitted. So please refer to that PI policy change move guidance that's on the nup.gov website. That applies after that pre-application is submitted.
Yeah, I would just add that please contact us as soon as possible if something like that is going on, and we can take a look at it. But yeah, Drew is correct.
Are considerations for minority serving institutions new to CINR, or how has it changed since last year, if at all?
This has been consistent since last year. We've considered this type of scoring criteria. I'm trying to remember back, and John may be able to remember better than I, but I think Probably in the 2014-2015 range was when the criteria was first introduced. And it's changed slightly since that 2014-2015 timeframe, but it's been consistent for the past few years.
Could you please explain the eligibility regarding NSUF, specifically how you would understand all projects proposed must have established R&D funding from another source?
So from an NSUF access standpoint, there are readiness requirements on, for example, the samples that you'd like to irradiate or perform PIE or other types of NSUF access. So from a readiness standpoint, there's specific places or a specific stage where those materials, for example, need to be considered ready to irradiate. I'm using irradiation, like a neutron irradiation as an example here. So from that perspective, like an awarded NEUP project that has samples that are in a ready state according to the NSUF rules could apply for access only to irradiate those samples in a reactor, for example, an ATR or MIT or something like that. The point being is that there isn't directly tied research and development funding and access that are combined together. That's been an aspect of the CINR FOA for quite a few years. And so that's the clarification, is that whether it's a funded R&D project that has samples that are ready to go in an access only space, or it's an industry collaboration, for example, where things are ready to go into that space, or maybe some other type of funded activity where the R&D is funded separately from the access.
I know we're getting close on time. I'll see if I can squeeze another question or two in. The next question is, for the other subtopics in each topic area, where can we find more information regarding the technical need or technical requirement of these other subtopics?
So I'm hoping that as you hear the presentations over the next 2 days, that it will give you that full space for that topic area, right? When you think about any of the given topic areas, for example, I'll use fuel cycle technologies as an example. The program overviews that were given today that kind of talked about the different program activities that are happening, different spaces that those are in, along with the presentations that are coming up in the next 2 days, I hope will inform that where that mission space, right, where there are potentially other categories that are necessarily described in detail in the subtopical areas. So as John said, when you think about any mission, think about it in general terms about supporting those 3 mission needs. And then from that perspective, it's a question of, if it doesn't directly apply to a subtopical area, to put it into that other category, which is intended to, capture those those concepts or those ideas that haven't necessarily been considered in the subtopical areas.
I would also add that and I said before, it's up to the applicant to define and make the case that what they're submitting is very, very important to the success of nuclear energy in this country in those open areas. And if you're going to apply, if you want to have something defined well, then I would apply to one of the work scopes that does have a definition. Otherwise, you're going to have to make the case yourself. Leads for maximum innovation on your part, but you're going to have to be able to figure that out and make that case. We're looking for new ideas too. That's the whole idea. It's not just responding to a particular need. The nuclear energy mission is wide open. So you tell us what's important, what's going to succeed, and what's going to work. And that's what we're interested in.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, Drew. We are out of time for the additional questions that remain. But as a reminder, the questions and the answers that have already been discussed, as well as the remaining questions that have not been answered yet, answers to those and all the others will be posted within a week or so at neup.inl.gov.